Our generation is one of the hardest working, yet our bank accounts never really show it. Therefore, I dive into one of the most important conversations around a pressing topic in our generation: money. I sat down with financial planner and advisor Dennis Asaro, who's been helping people for nearly 3 decades build generational wealth. And he gives us the practical tools around what we need to do the exact same. Investments, credit, debt, budgeting, all the things that you'll need to build a future that is financially secured. So if you're ready to start seeing the reward of your labor, this conversation is for you. Dennis, how are you, sir?
Hello, everybody.
You doing well?
I'm doing great. This life that we have is a joy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much for just taking some time to have some conversation, and especially with all of your years of experience. How long have you been a financial advisor, financial planner?
Wow, that takes me back some ways. I have to think about this for a second. It's been so long. It's hard to remember the years. Everything just kind of blends together. I think it's been 27 years. I was licensed back in 1998, the last half of the year.
Oh, man.
If you remember that, it was just before the dot-com bubble, and the markets were returning excessive amounts of returns for several years, and people got very, very aggressive, and shortly after that, a lot of people lost significant amount of money because they were too aggressive. And I remember starting out in that time period. It was interesting because I'd have people come to me and they want to be very aggressive, and I'd be talking to them about being more
pump the brakes.
Pump the brakes a little bit. Yeah, be careful. Don't be so anxious to get those 60% of your returns, because they could be fleeting.
Yeah. Well, it definitely, for this conversation, sounds like you are the right man to dive into this conversation with, because of your many years of experience. Of course, now we have a great generation of people that are going after it. I mean, we're working hard. Why do you think in my generation, it is a thing for us to work so hard, yet see so little return financially long-term for all of the work that we've been able to put in?
Well, it's very interesting to watch your generation, and those are 30 years and younger, or even 25 years and younger. There seems to be a different attitude starting to grow, and that is one of having purpose for financial understanding and making the right kind of decisions, staying out of debt. But what is difficult, I think, is that everything has gotten so expensive, and a lot of young people become discouraged with their position and not feeling like they can go ahead and do well because all the roadblocks that seem in front of them. But I really believe that with a little bit of planning and a little bit of tenacity, in other words, being focused on your goals and being consistent at what you do, you can really make a lot of progress in a short period of time, and really set yourself up for the long term in a way that most people in this nation will not do.
And with that, you even had talked about that age range, that 25 to 35 year age range. And with all of your experience and the many different economical changes that you have helped advise and plan people financially for, if you could warn those of us that are 25 to 35 or even 25 to 40 about things that we may do now with our finances, our money making decisions that may not turn out so beneficial for us in the future, what would you warn us?
I think one of the biggest warnings for any generation, especially this generation, is not to follow suit like prior generations have done, which is use debt as a way to live. An example of that would be not to go out and buy an expensive automobile when you're young, especially when you're starting out with a family, and have payments because, quote, you can afford the payments. The payments are not the problem. The long-term debt and the interest that you pay on those payments is the problem, and you don't want to be a slave to the borrower. Scripture says something about that, and says that the borrower is a slave to the lender. And we're not to be slaves. We're supposed to be free.
That is so true. And I think in some ways, what makes that hard in our generation today is that that whole debt concept is really something that is pushed at us in every angle, because I would imagine previous generations before us, their debt was always either around cars, houses. But for us, debt has been something that has been dwindled down to even family trips, vacations
Yes,
with paying
right.
for, PayPal, all of these different things where we could pay now and then pay it later. How would you say we get around that agenda of taking on small amounts of debts because we can handle the payment, but that not be something that is actually beneficial to us? How can we get around that?
Well, Khalil, that's a great question. And one of the things that I think is important to know is that experiences are just that. They're here and they're long
Mm,
lasting, right? And
yeah.
a lot of folks want to have those experiences and enjoy life. And when you feel like there's little hope for the future, why not go into debt, right? Why not go
Right.
ahead and spend
True.
$5,000 to $10,000 on a trip with a few friends or your family and
Mm,
go out and just live it up. But
yeah.
these issues have been around for lifelong, for everybody, for going back generations. That some people have said to me, go ahead and spend a lot of money. You can catch up on the debt later. Enjoy your family. But what happens is that you end up in a bad spot later on in life. You can't
Mm,
afford to pay your mortgage payments. You can't afford to put food on the table like you want to. And
man.
when you have grandkids, you can't do the nice things you want to for those grandkids. So one of the things, Khalil, is that is not to spend money that you haven't yet earned. And so what I mean by that is that if you're looking at that car or you're looking at that vacation and you're going to go into debt, you're going to have payments. You're
Yeah.
going to pull out your credit card and you're going to rack it up because you only have to, if you get $10,000 on your credit card, you only have to make a couple $100 a month payments.
Hmm.
That's a fool's errand. And to
Mm,
be able to go out and enjoy life is good.
right.
But on the other hand, if that enjoyment will sabotage your future, that's no good.
Mm. That is so true, and I think, unfortunately for my generation, we will put a premium on the experiences and things that we want to do, and then come back home or back to life and actually start having to put the pieces together to financially maintain the experience that we just enjoyed. And oftentimes, to your point, one missed payment or things of those sort can hurt us in a negative manner down the road. What is one thing that you would say someone who's trying to get a handle on their finances, uh, be it the end of the year 2025, or they're really trying to be better with finances in 2026? What is one thing that you would tell them to do outside of not spending money that they don't already have? What's going on, family? Real quick, I wanted to stop and personally invite you to join my brand new inner circle for speakers, leaders, business people, and of course, second chair leaders who wish to grow in wisdom, strategy, and impact. When you join, not if you join, when you join, you will receive early exclusive access to the resources and tools that I use every day to lead in business and in ministry. Not only that, you'll also get the opportunity to ask your wisdom provoking questions on a special MicToss episode to the guests that will be on. If you are interested, click the link in the show notes to join the waitlist for the inner circle, and I'll see you inside. Let's get back.
Well, let me just couch it in terms of a question. If
Yeah.
you let's just role play a little bit. If you have debt and you have car debt, you have credit card debt,
Yeah.
and generally your generation, then you're also looking at mortgage debt,
Hmm.
and you're paying $700 a month on car payments, and you have 4, 5, 6, 7, $800 a month on credit card payments. What do you do in that situation in order to resolve the conflict that you have with needing to enjoy life and also needing to meet those obligations? And I would say the first thing you do is assess where you're at. And if you have spent money that you haven't earned, and
Mm,
that means that you don't have it in hand to pay for the thing that you want to buy, you don't buy it. So if you have a
got
car,
it.
say that's worth $20,000 and you have $700 a month payments, and maybe the value of that car is somewhere around the same value. You just sell the car. You
Hmm.
could sell the car. If you have a few $1,000s, go buy a car for a couple $1,000s and get out of
Right.
that payment, and then begin saving that $700 a month in a in an investment account or a bank account or
Hmm.
somewhere where you know you're going to build that up over time to buy a better car down the road.
Hmm.
And that way you get out of debt quickly. You can even take that $700 a month that you saved on that car now and pay down maybe your credit card debts and get out of those and determine never to go into debt on credit cards ever again.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing in which we're hearing and taking away is doing anything that we can in a very aggressive manner to just get rid of debt. And debt being the first step into, of course, true financial freedom, and not solely just seeing debt as a opportunity to get something that we want and chunk it into more manageable payments, but doing whatever we need to get out of debt is step number one. Now,
That is
I'm
step number one. Debt
yeah.
debt is the enemy of all things good.
Why would you say that debt is the enemy of all things good?
Because if you were a slave to the debt, you when the things that you really do need, the things that you really do want to do later in life, when you're in your 20s and you're building up debt and you're building up these payments that you can afford because you're starting to earn a little bit more money, you're getting better at it. You you then go out and something happens, and when you're 35 or 40, you cannot go out and buy what you need because you're trumped up with debt. You're overloaded.
Got
Your
it.
debt to income ratios are out of whack. You can't get a mortgage,
Man.
and now your back is against the wall. But if
Yeah.
you manage the little things well when you're young, you'll be granted bigger things when you're older.
I think that was really just so much wisdom that you had given there. If you manage the little things well when you're young, you can manage way better the bigger things when you are older. Clearly, that is a correlation to the scripture. If you're faithful over a few, he'll make you ruler over many. And I think that
Exactly right.
is a right. And I think that's a beautiful way for us to see scripture as something that we can live and breathe, and how that connects to even things like our financial life. Now, with debt being step one, you then start to talk about investments. And I think that is a big thing that my generation also wants to know, but really don't know where the language is or how to do it, and so on and so forth. If there are those that are listening that have one, did their due diligence to get rid of debt, and they want to start figuring out, how do I invest? Is it the stock market? Is it just putting money in a bank account and letting that interest over time build and compound? What would you say to those that may be ready for that step in building their financial freedom?
Well, I would say, Khalil, that the first thing that's really important to get embedded in our minds is that all our money should be working for us all the time.
Mm,
So if I am saving and I have money in the bank account, maybe I have some in the bank account just for immediate needs. But in my mind, I would say that all money should be invested at all times, whether it's in very secure, shorter term instruments that are going to pay a higher yield than what a bank will be paying, or in the stock market. Your money should be working for you all the time. A little bit of risk goes a long way in terms of growing your
mhm.
assets. And I'll say this, I believe the one true way to wealth in this country, well, there's actually two. One is by working really hard and
Yeah.
never giving up. And when you feel like you're getting behind, work harder. Number
Mm,
two is to invest regularly and build up your nest egg so that when you're 30, 40, 50 years old, you're in the top percentile of all people in the country for wealth in your age category. And
mm,
it works every single time. And if you're not foolish and too aggressive,
yeah.
you'll get there. You can get there with a 7% return, you can get there with a 6% return, or you can get there with a 12% return. But everybody's different, and we all have to be mindful of what is that person's tone as far as what can they handle as far as risk and volatility.
Hmm. Now, I think even as we talk about risk and investments, I'm sure there's someone that's listening like, yes, I want to do that. I just don't know how. or where to start. If there is someone that feels like they are ready to start in investments and even just having the conversation, where do they turn? Is it just a class? Is it a person? How could they start?
Well, certainly there's a ton of resources online, YouTube videos all over the place. And there's also professionals like myself that they could turn
Mhm.
to. That if someone wants to do a good job, I think they're always better off working with a professional. There's a
Got it.
lot of disagreement about that, but
Mm,
someone who really works hard and puts their best efforts forward for their clients will they'll hit their targets where they want to go to. If I say to a client, I want to get a 7% rate of return based on what your needs are and your risk tolerances are, we're going to come pretty darn close over a 3, 5, and 10-year period of time because we know what we're doing with that. Oftentimes people get involved in the markets and they will go after it themselves thinking that they're pretty smart because they purchased a stock like Robinhood at $17, now at 149. That's great, that's wonderful, and those are few and far between.
yeah.
But if you practice proper diversification allocations and
Mm,
risk management, you can go down the road a long ways and have something set up where you can know where you're going to be at 40,
mm.
50, 60 years old.
And you said something that I wanted to expound on, or at least just get your thoughts and perspective on it. You said there are many that argue whether they should do it on their own or whether they should go the professional route, or and working with someone that knows what they're doing and allow that person to kind of do it for them. With that being your profession, I know you and my grandmother. This is how I came to know Dennis. My grandmother, who I mean, hardworking woman, worked all of my life at Post Foods, a factory. She has since then retired many years ago, and she has been working with Dennis for many years. And as I wanted to start having the conversation of investments and even debt, I reached out to Dennis, and that's how I really came into the connection with the brilliance that he is. With that being your profession, what would you say are some of the pros and maybe the cons of working with someone, allowing them to be the broker in those investments as opposed to doing it on your own?
Well, I think there's two different categories. One is someone who just wants their investments handled and they want to give them a risk tolerance and say, this is where I want to be for growth and returns. This is where I
Mhm.
want to be down the road. And we can calculate that out. That's pretty simple.
Got it.
The bigger picture for me is that I think by putting together an investment plan that includes what are your goals for life? What about your children? What about charity? How are you doing with how you manage your budget today, and
Mhm.
how are you saving money in different categories like a Roth IRA, traditional IRA, 401k,
Mhm.
investment account, and in if your goals are lining up with what you want to do, we can tell you where you'd be in terms of retirement. What are the probabilities of success? So if you can say, I have an 85% probability of having money last me through my lifetime if I stopped working at 60, we're
Mhm.
there to help you determine that and know exactly what that looks like.
Got it. Got it. And with you helping someone determine what you just outlined, that's where you as a professional can help them diversify uh, where their money is going to get them that dollar amount that they're looking for to be done by 60. Is that correct?
Yes, it's basically like
Mm,
the bigger picture is that you got the sum of money. So you have, let's say someone has $1 million or $2 million in
yeah.
retirement today, and they have social security, they have pensions, they have all these different categories and when to take social security, when not to take social security, what
Mhm,
are the tax implications, how do you decide, whether or not you're going to make a contribution to an IRA, a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA, and
mhm.
what type of ramifications that have on your taxes for now and down the road. And we work with clients to make sure that they are making the proper decisions with those allocations.
Got it. No, that makes complete sense. And of course, the opposite of that is one of the ways that I think my generation goes about it, partially because, of course, working with a professional, I'm sure there are some costs associated with that. And so our generation will go either the YouTube route or the TikTok route or the
Right.
small course route. And then we will try on our own to make investments and things of that sort without having a full knowledge, and then we run the risk of losing more money than we're actually gaining, which is
Right.
why I think one of these conversations is so beneficial for my generation to help us understand our options of what growth and all of those things could look like for us financially while we're still young, so that we can, as we get to our 40s and 50s and so on and so forth, enjoy more of the finer things because we have spent some of these years working and taking care of debts and proper investments where we can. Now, you mentioned something, retirement, and I know as the economy goes on, the conversation of retirement being done, pensions, social security, all of those things are like buzzwords for my generation to think by the time we get to that retirement age, Social Security may not be as beneficial as it was for our grandparents and our fathers and our mothers. And so understanding that, it leaves us to think, well, I need to be intentional about not just working my 9 to 5
Absolutely.
job, but
Yes.
taking the finances that I get from my 9 to 5 job and investing those, maybe fix and flips or many other type of avenues to obtain that money. What would you say to the young adult that has a job, but they're looking for other ways to diversify their funds so that they don't have to worry about getting 60 and retirement not being what they thought it would?
Right. I think the first step is like we started out with is making sure that we get a handle on any debt or any
Yep.
needs going forward, like purchasing a home, getting married,
Mhm.
those types of things, not having automobile debt, or having credit card debt. In managing money properly, that you set up a proper budget to
Mm.
live by. So someone's earning a couple $1,000s a month, how much is actually needed to meet all the essentials like food and that type of thing. But if you're going out to eat 3 times a week and you're spending $200 a week going out to eat, that kind of
Yeah.
blows everything up.
Yeah.
The second thing is
Mm.
once you get a handle on that and you have reasonable expectations about how you should be spending your money, then set up a systematic investment plan with an advisor or even on your own. Some people are really good with doing that on their own, and I don't
Okay.
begrudge anyone doing that.
Got it.
But I would say that using a professional will help you make better decisions because they have a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge that maybe you don't have. But it sometimes feels like you do understand that. I remember when I was young, I thought I
Yeah.
understood everything, right? And as I
Yes,
get
sir.
older, the more I realize I didn't understand much of anything. So it's important to set up a systematic, regular investment plan and set up goals so that you have something to shoot for. If you don't have any goals,
Mm.
you might get there, you might not.
Got it. Got it.
We
No,
used to
that
say, we
uh-huh.
used to say, Khalil, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Mhm.
And that's so true in so many instances because a lot of times we think of if we're planning, we'll just hope everything works out.
Right.
Folks don't save enough money generally in that instance. But if
Mm.
you're frugal in what you do in terms of spending and you're diligent in setting up goals with a financial planner or advisor, then you can go ahead and start making those plans. And when you get down the road, you're going to realize you have more than what you
Yeah.
need, and
Yeah.
you're going to be able to live a life better than anybody else around.
Got it. I think that's really good wisdom and something that our generation needs to hear. The biggest thing that I just took away from what you said is, in some of the years that we want to enjoy in our 20s and our 30s, it's okay to enjoy those things within our means so that we are living future focused and living for our families and our unborn children that will need a wise Khalil today to be wise and frugal with his spending today, my children will benefit from that in many later years, which is the biggest thing that I'm taking away from this conversation. Dennis,
Right.
I typically ask, what is one thing you wish someone had told you when you were sitting in our seats and just starting out? But in this conversation, I wanted to ask you, if there was someone my age and they're sitting across from you in your profession and they say, hey, I have 2 grand, I have settled my debts, I'm out of debt, I have 2 grand that I want to invest, what would be some of the first things that you advise them in that conversation?
Well, first thing, I'd congratulate them on being out of debt,
Yes,
because
sir.
that is so significant. I can't even tell you how important that is to get out of debt and stay out of debt.
Mhm.
The second thing is to use that money to provide, make it work for you, make it work hard for you, and add to it so that you can grow that asset. And if that money is earmarked for something special, then set that goal up and let's set up a plan to make that money grow to where you need it to be. The next thing is, I would just remind people too that we save money, we invest money for a couple different reasons. One is
Mhm.
for life comfort for later on in life. The second reason is to have a goal in mind and to satisfy that goal and have some joy in this life that we have. With that, if we don't have anything saved for the hard times, when the
Yeah.
hard times come, and they will come for all of us at
Mhm.
some point or another, if you don't have anything to fall back on,
Yeah.
you're left alone. The world
Mhm.
doesn't treat people who are poor and in heavy debt kindly.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
world treats people who have prepared their way and
Mm.
have a backstop for them to walk through life's difficult times financially if they have prepared. Without preparing, we're setting up a disaster.
Yeah.
And I can tell you from my own life experiences, I sold a house when I was younger,
Mhm.
and I had some money from that house.
Yeah.
We ran into a huge economic downturn, affected my job and many other people along the way.
Mhm.
I needed the money that I had saved from the house sale that I didn't put into the new house. And
Mhm.
most people would take all their money that they have and put into the new house. And I
Right.
didn't do that. I set some aside because I felt like I needed to do that. Didn't have a lot of savings.
Mm.
That money helped us survive the next 12 months as the economy started changing.
Wow.
And without that, I would have been having to go out and borrow more money,
Mhm.
and I would have gone into debt, and it would have been more costly to me.
Wow. I think even that story, helps us to see the success on the other side. Man, Dennis, I think this conversation has been really good with mass amounts of practicality to give a younger generation on things like coming out of debt and even some of the first steps that they can do when they are outside of debt, so that they are ready to make those proper investments to set themselves up better for their futures. Dennis, thank you so much for coming
Thanks,
on.
Khalil.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. All of you that are watching, be sure to like, comment, and turn on that notification bell so you can stay up to date on everything happening right here at MicToss. I'll see you next week. Peace.